Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Alamo Pintado Creek Pedestrian Bridge Project virtual public hearing. We appreciate your interest in the project and welcome each of you. Given the unique circumstances with the COVID-19 pandemic, Caltrans is committed to following social distancing guidelines. Therefore, this presentation has been prepared instead of an in-person public hearing and will provide the same information as a standard public hearing. Details on how to submit your comments will be shared later in this presentation. This presentation, in addition to all project information, documents, and supporting materials, are all found on the project website, which can be accessed from the Caltrans District 5 website. In accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as amended, and the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987, Caltrans will make every effort to ensure non-discrimination in all of its programs and activities, whether they are federally funded or not. Services and benefits will be fairly distributed to all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, gender, age, disability, or income. In addition, Caltrans will facilitate meaningful participation in the transportation planning process in a non-discriminatory manner. Caltrans Title VI policies are found on the Caltrans website. To obtain this information in an alternate format such as Braille or in a language other than English, please contact Caltrans by mail, phone, or email title.vi@dot.ca.gov. Please take a few moments to complete the survey found on the project website. This information is voluntary and will enable Caltrans to identify impacted residents and communities affected by the Federal Aid Highway Program. This virtual public hearing is presented by Caltrans for the Alamo Pintado Creek Pedestrian Bridge Project. The public hearing has four primary goals. 1. To inform the public of the project status and to provide information on the potential impacts to the environment. 2. To describe the project so the public will know how they may be affected. 3. To provide the public an opportunity to provide input and comments on the draft environmental document. And 4. To develop a record of public views and participation that Caltrans will use to make subsequent decisions. Following the public comment period, Caltrans will proceed with the preparation of the final environmental document. Your statements and comments will be given full consideration and will be addressed in the final environmental document. You may provide written comments by email or postal service to the attention of Jason Wilkinson, Environmental Branch Chief. Comments must be received by the deadline of October 9, 2020 in order to be included in the official public hearing record. The draft environmental document can be viewed at the project website. Hard copies are also available at the Caltrans District 5 office in San Luis Obispo. I will now describe the project background and design features of the Alamo Pintado Creek Pedestrian Bridge Project. The project is located in Santa Barbara County, in the town of Los Olivos on the south side of Highway 154. The bridge crosses the Alamo Pintado Creek. The Alamo Pintado Creek Pedestrian Bridge was constructed in 1912. In 1971, a new bridge structure, Alamo Pintado Creek Bridge, was built 40 feet upstream from the original structure. At that time, local citizens contacted the state to leave the 1912 structure in place so it could be used as a pedestrian and equestrian trail bridge. Concrete footing encasements were built around the pile caps of the existing structure. However, these encasements have eventually become exposed and undermined over time. Scouring of the pile and pier foundation has caused settlement of the bridge deck. A bridge inspection report in 2011 determined the abandoned bridge is no longer stable with respect to gravity load. The bridge is sinking slowly at the supports. In the inspection report, recommendations were made to either retrofit the bridge or remove the bridge. Since these recommendations were made, it has been determined that this area of Alamo Pintado Creek is designated as a floodway, and the channel capacity cannot be reduced. Retrofitting is not feasible since the substructure would require constructing foundation elements within the channel, which would affect the hydraulic capacity of the creek. The purpose of this project is to reduce the risk to users from a bridge failure. The project is needed because there is critical scouring of the pile and pier foundation of the bridge. The bridge structure is no longer stable with respect to gravity loads. Creek channel degradation has resulted in heavily exposed bridge piles, causing the bridge to sink at its supports. Caltrans proposes to remove the Alamo Pintado Creek pedestrian bridge. The project would also remove a retaining wall and install rock slope protection, known as RSP, to protect the channel banks from erosion. The bridge superstructure would be removed from above the creek, while the piers and foundation portion would be removed from below. Minor grading and embankment restoration would also be necessary within the proposed construction easement. The proposed project also considers bridge replacement alternatives. There are 3 alternatives under consideration. The build alternatives include Alternative 1, bridge replacement, and Alternative 2, bridge removal. Alternative 3 is the no-build alternative. An alternative that was considered but rejected includes retrofitting the bridge. Due to a request from the community to retrofit the bridge, the project development team asked the Structures Unit to review such an alternative. Caltrans Structures engineers concluded that the bridge is not retrofittable. Alternative 1 would remove and replace the existing bridge. Bridge replacement alternatives include Alternatives 1A and 1B. Alternative 1A proposes a single-span concrete bridge about 115 feet long, 12 feet wide, and 4 feet deep. 3 design options are being considered for the bridge railing and includes architecturally treated concrete curbs, different sizes of steel beam railings, and one of the options includes architecturally treated concrete posts. Alternative 1B would replace the existing bridge with a pre-engineered steel bowstring truss bridge with steel posts and a steel beam railing. The proposed bridge would be about 115 feet long, 10 feet wide, and about 9 inches deep. An example of a pre-engineered steel bowstring truss bridge is shown on this slide. Alternative 2 would remove the bridge as outlined in the project description but would not replace it. Alternative 3 is the no-build alternative and would leave the bridge as it is. This would allow the structure to continue to deteriorate and would not address the deficiencies of the bridge. Project costs include support, construction, and right-of-way costs. The total project cost is estimated at about $3.8 million. Construction would take about 6 months to complete. Construction would begin in April of 2023 and it would be completed in October of 2023. This project will be funded from the Bridge Rehabilitation and Replacement Program in the 2020 State Highway Operational and Protection Program. I will now describe the environmental framework and summarize the environmental studies. This project is subject to state and federal environmental review requirements. Project documentation has been prepared in compliance with both the National Environmental Policy Act, known as NEPA, and the California Environmental Quality Act, known as CEQA. Caltrans is the lead agency under both CEQA and NEPA. In compliance with CEQA, Caltrans has prepared an initial study for this project. The initial study describes why the project is being proposed, what alternatives are under consideration, how the existing environment could be affected by the project, potential impacts of alternatives considered, and the proposed avoidance, minimization, and mitigation measures. Pending public review, Caltrans intends to adopt a mitigated negative declaration, meaning that the proposed project would not have a significant effect on the environment with the proposed mitigation incorporated. This does not mean that Caltrans' decision on the project is final. This proposed mitigated negative declaration is subject to changes based on comments received from interested agencies and the public. Under NEPA, Caltrans performs federal responsibilities for environmental decisions and approvals that are funded by the Federal Highway Administration through a Memorandum of Understanding between the two agencies. Caltrans intends to prepare environmental documentation supporting a categorical exclusion based on the results of the technical studies conducted for the project, which document there would be no significant effect on the environment as defined by NEPA. Because NEPA is concerned with the significance of the project as a whole, sometimes an impact determination to be significant under CEQA does not lead to a determination of significance under NEPA. This is the case for this proposed project. The significance determinations discussed in the rest of the presentation apply only to CEQA, not NEPA. Technical studies were prepared for the proposed Alamo Pintado Creek Pedestrian Bridge project to study the effects the project may have on the environment, in accordance with both NEPA and CEQA. These technical studies were approved by Caltrans and were completed in coordination with other public agencies, including the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. To obtain a copy of one or more of these technical studies, please email your request to jason.wilkinson@dot.ca.gov. This slide shows a list of all resources that were evaluated during the environmental analyses where it was determined that the proposed project would result in no impacts under CEQA. The initial study provides further explanation as to why the proposed project would have no impacts on each of these resources. It was determined that the project would have a less than significant impact on visual and aesthetics and biological resources. It was determined that the project would have a less than significant impact on cultural resources with the proposed mitigation incorporated. The following slides describe the potential impacts for each of these resources and the proposed avoidance, minimization, and mitigation measures that will be incorporated. Construction of alternatives 1 and 2 would require removal of several mature trees and other vegetation in the immediate vicinity of the bridge, which would affect the visual quality in the area. The old stone bridge rails in the existing pedestrian bridge are considered a scenic resource. Removal of the existing stone bridge rails would diminish the visual quality of the scenic highway at that location. Proposed avoidance and minimization measures for alternatives 1 and 2 include preserving as much existing vegetation as possible. Following construction, regrading and recontouring construction access roads, staging areas, and other temporary uses would be conducted to match the surrounding natural topography. Creek banks would be revegetated with native vegetation. Rock slope protection shall be placed in a natural appearing arrangement and either planted or stained to reduce noticeability. For alternative 1, aesthetic treatment shall be included in the proposed replacement bridge rail design. The appearance shall be consistent with the local community aesthetic values and the State Scenic Highway State Route 154 corridor. The proposed project would remove 7 Southern California black walnut trees due to their proximity to the bridge. The removal would not only affect individual Southern California black walnut trees, but also the wildlife species that may use these trees as foraging, nesting, and/or roosting habitat. Although none of the regional animal species of concern were seen during biological surveys, their presence is inferred due to the presence of suitable habitat. In addition, bat droppings, called guano, were found right below night roosting locations. The initial study provides detailed information on all the proposed avoidance and minimization measures. Some of these measures include placement of an environmentally sensitive area fencing to protect sensitive resources, biological monitoring before and during construction, work windows and restrictions, and environmental education and training for workers. After construction, stream contours would be restored as close as possible to the original condition, and measures will be implemented to prevent the spread of invasive species. Replacement plantings would be achieved using a 3-to-1 ratio for each native tree removed. On-site replacement plantings will include the Southern California black walnut, western sycamore, and the arroyo willow. Under alternatives 1 and 2, the demolition of the Alamo Pintado Creek Pedestrian Bridge would result in a finding of direct adverse effect to a historic resource that is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. Proposed avoidance, minimization, and mitigation measures include preparing a public interpretive document, such as a pamphlet or booklet, on the history of transportation and historical context of the bridge. It would be distributed in the local area. Historic American engineering record professional photographs and written documentation of the bridge will be prepared before the bridge is demolished. In addition, an interpretive exhibit will be installed in an area where it can provide a public benefit. The information in the exhibit will be on the history of the transportation and historical context of the local area, and it will be installed in the project vicinity. Based on the studies thus far, the environmental investigations indicate that this project would not result in significant impacts on the quality of the human or natural environment, with the proposed avoidance, minimization, and mitigation measures incorporated. The public comment period ends October 9th of 2020. Following the public comment period, all documentation of this public hearing will be reviewed by Caltrans for final environmental determination and design approval. If there are no major issues arising from this hearing that cannot be addressed in a reasonable time frame, final environmental determination and project approval is expected in January of 2021. The project has an intended ready-to-list for bidding date of June of 2022, and fund allocation is anticipated in August of 2022. Construction would begin in April of 2023, and it would be completed in October of 2023. Revisions or updates may be made to the environmental document in response to public input and comments received during the public comment period, or to address the needs of the state and federal agencies. After all necessary revisions are provided, the environmental document will be finalized. Caltrans intends to adopt a mitigated negative declaration for the project. Following the public comment period, Caltrans will proceed with the preparation of the final environmental document. Your statements and comments will be given full consideration and will be addressed in the final environmental document. You may provide written comments by email or postal service to the attention of Jason Wilkinson, Environmental Branch Chief. Comments must be received by the deadline of October 9th, 2020 in order to be included in the official public hearing record. Thank you for attending the virtual public hearing for the Alamo Pintado Creek Pedestrian Bridge Project.